Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Joe.
And you're listening to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up, the podcast. And this week, we're reviewing Daddy's Home 2.
Daddy's home to what? Sorry. Okay.
Welcome to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? Featuring two guys getting intoxicated and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
And thank you to Kellyanne Tinker, who left that synonym for us on Facebook.
I feel like we should have had intoxicated before. This seems like such an obvious synonym.
Is this our first?
This is our first time using intoxicated.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't put those synonyms on if they've been used before. We're going for all 100% original synonyms on here.
Thank
but I'm
you.
just surprised that we haven't had that in 100
Right.
plus episodes. No one's thought to suggest intoxicated.
Well, thank you,
That would be
Kellyanne.
like my number. If I was the one writing all the synonyms for this, that'd be my first go-to suggestion for this.
As would I.
If we were on Family Feud, that would be the winning choice for synonym for drunk.
Right.
I would feel like
Steve Harvey would have his hands, would have his face in his hands being like, how did y'all not think of intoxicated, huh?
I'm trying to keep my job.
This is all an act. I'm
not that shocked by what you guys are saying. I say worse things to my wife in bed.
I've heard the word penis before. Believe it or not.
I'm 50 years old. I've heard penis before. But this week, we're drinking
Bitburger.
Bitburger? Bitburger?
Hitler's favorite drink is a Bitburger. It's
see.
Bitburger.
Premium beer, the international trademark, the Germany's #1 draft beer. And if their can is to be believed, it is mit Bitburger Siegelhoppen gebraut, nach Duschkem Reinhotschgebon. It's a horrible German pronunciation of a German phrase that I have no idea what it means.
And I got deep into the international beer section this week. I actually got 2 beers because I thought I was supposed to get 2 beers, but I'm saving one for next time, which is also European beer, but this is Bitburger. And it's very German.
Salty.
You can taste it, yeah.
Tastes like a pretzel.
The last time I had this was maybe in Germany. Maybe I've had it since. Tastes very familiar.
You were underage last time you were in Germany.
Yeah.
Were you of age for the German drinking age?
No.
What are they, 18 there? Or?
Oh, no. Actually, I was of age, but I mean,
Your school didn't allow you to drink.
yes, my guardians, it was highly, it was, yes, but I was drinking a lot of Jägermeister and Bitburger, and we even went to some sort of rave where they had ecstasy, but I did not partake in that.
The great German substance, ecstasy.
I was offered plenty of ecstasy, and I did not partake because I was like, that's going to be a dead giveaway.
Oh, they're going to know.
Yeah. I feel like the best time to start ecstasy is not when you're 17.
Ever.
Yes. I don't know. You could be, you
If you're 30, make your own decision.
But when you're just abroad, maybe it's not the best time.
with people you don't,
Right, yeah. Stick with the Bitburger, huh?
I'm trying to compare it to, this is clearly like a Budweiser, Coors, Miller, type beer. Mm-hmm. I actually really like the fact that the entire thing is in German. Mm-hmm. The only part that's really in American is the Germany's #1 draft beer. but the rest of it is in American English. Can you tell it's our third episode of the night?
Oh, that's Bitburger.
Just a bit of the burger for you.
I guess that's Bitburger. Yeah, no, it's good. It tastes like I don't know. I don't know how else. It tastes like it tastes exactly how you think it would taste like a kind of Heineken or.
Yeah, it is It's hoppier than most.
It tastes like Heineken or Beck or something.
Like usually those are like Pilsners, they would call them, like, you know, Budweiser or Coors or Miller. Those like real light Pilsner ales. It's definitely a little bit hoppier, kind of salty-ish. It reminds me, I would compare it most to like Natty Boh or something like that, probably. Okay. Yeah.
It's also like in Europe. They're very strange. They just such a weird culture that invented beer. They'll just serve beer like room temperature or something. You know, like it's just.
I've heard that about the rest of the world. It's fucking weird.
Also, Germany just has Germany and Austria are just like cold cuts for breakfast, huh? And I'm like. I guess my heartburn loves this. You guys just like live on what is that heartburn medication?
Zantac.
Yeah, do you guys just like live on Zantac?
But anyway, this week we're doing Daddy's Home 2. So Joe, if you want to give me that IMDb description.
I would love to, Michael.
It's gonna be a German episode.
Having finally gotten used to each other's existence, Brad and Dusty must now deal with the intrusive fathers during the holidays.
Is that German or Swiss?
Maybe it's
Fathers.
Maybe it's a little both.
Both. But Daddy's Home 2 is obviously a sequel to 2015's Daddy's Home, which was a surprise hit that became Will Ferrell's highest-grossing live-action film of all time, surpassing Elf.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive. It was like $250-something million, I feel like they grossed.
Wow.
Hey,
this is Owen Wilson. Wow. I was watching Wedding Crashers over the weekend. Really brought me back
like
to
the Owen Wilson wow, and then I was just listening to the Pete Holmes episode with Josh Rubin, and there's like the Robin Williams wow you can do, like wow. Wow. But Daddy's Home 2, written and directed by Sean Anders, who has previously written and directed Never Been Thawed, Sex Drive, Horrible Bosses 2, and Daddy's Home. And then previously wrote She's Out of My League, Hot Tub Time Machine, Mr. Popper's Penguins, We're the Millers, and Dumb and Dumber 2. And then he directed, but didn't write, That's My Boy. And then it was co-written by John Morris, who he must be Sean Anders' writing partner, because pretty much the exact same credits for all of this, writing-wise, not directing-wise. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of like not horrible but decent comedies in there. Like Hot Tub Time Machine's funny for sure.
Sex Drive is like one of my
Drive's good.
Personal favorites.
We're the Millers is pretty funny.
Sex Drive was like right in that sweet spot of my comedy development of like when I really was like, Just Friends is great. Like I was watching like Sex Drive, like I think my friend Paul and I like snuck into Sex Drive like 3 times just to watch it, just because it wasn't all funny. Like Seth Green being an Amish person wasn't really convincing nor funny, but like there was something funny about that narrative, which is funny. Just because this past weekend the two of us watched fucking one of the most iconic comedies. I'm gonna punish myself for not knowing this.
Give me some factors. Let me help you out.
I'm too embarrassed. Michael Cera and
Superbad.
Yes, Superbad. It was my first weekend. Again, I went into the woods with my friends, and granted, there wasn't Wi-Fi, but there was a satellite TV. So on FX, I was able to watch Wedding Crashers.
The TV edited versions of these movies.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And maybe it was even on like satellite has like HBO or HBO or whatever. Maybe it wasn't. I don't really fucking know. I couldn't tell the difference.
I think there also is like the unedited version of FX now.
Yeah.
FXX or whatever.
But I watched half of Wedding Crashers and I watched the entirety of Superbad, which still to this day is, I think, of maybe one of the funniest comedies I've ever seen. But it was truly in a golden age of comedy.
That is sadly no more.
It is. I mean,
long gone.
How long ago did that happen? That was
we were in high school, right? Or like just starting college, maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think we must have been in college because I definitely don't remember relating to like the we're about to go to college themes. I definitely would have picked up on that if I was in high school, but I don't think it was too deep into college. I remember watching it at my parents' house, and there's not too far into college that I would have been at my parents' house.
Yeah, I watched it with Paul, who's my friend from high school, and I also remember standing in line in Wayne Hall, or like the Wayne dining area at William Patterson University, and there was like this like ridiculously hot girl like walking by us, and like her thong was like sticking out, and like some like Mexican kid like turned around and looked at me, and he was just like, "You ever see Superbad?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "It's like they say, it's like, you know, he said something, I can't fucking remember the quote exactly, but it says something like, nothing is as hot as, like, sure, there's like some really like intelligent girls at Ivy League colleges, but nothing is as hot as like state college girls. They're just like too ridiculously hot." Yeah.
Words of wisdom from the random Hispanic man in line at Wayne Dining Hall.
He just looked at me and we both shared a laugh because it's like, yeah, I've seen Superbad, and he told me that, and I was like, yeah, no, that's very.
Yeah, I get the reference.
Yeah,
I'm familiar.
That applies to what we're looking at right now.
Good job. Oh boy, but only other real note I have is just the cast: Will Ferrell, Mark Wahlberg, John Lithgow, Linda Cardellini, John Cena, Scarlett Estevez, Owen Vaccaro, Alessandra Ambrosio, Didi Costini, Chesley Sully Sullenberger, and the wife-beating, Jew-hating Mel Gibson.
Oh no!
Why cast him in this movie?
He's good though. I'll defend that. I'll defend that he's the second best actor in this film.
Who's the first?
John Lithgow, of course.
Good.
Yeah. Mel Gibson does a really great job at the role that's handed to him, regardless.
He's good at being a prick.
Yeah, no, regardless of his background. I was laughing at. I was rewatching the Spirit Awards from last year, when John Mulaney and Nick Kroll were hosting, and they said like, it was so funny because it was almost like they saw in the future of like what's happening now, and they were like, how long does it take for Hollywood to forgive somebody who's like like made like a terrible mistake? And they like waited like a second. They were like, 8 years. Mel Gibson directs Hacksaw Ridge. and it's nominated for Best Director. Like, it was just really funny.
Oh God. Yeah, let's get into Daddy's Home the second. Two.
I actually ended up watching the original.
How was it?
On Thursday. Sabri and I were waiting for her friend to go out into town, and what Sabri thought was a joke ended up as us watching the entire movie. Sabri and I have this joke, my girlfriend, where I'll start a movie and I'll be like, wouldn't it be funny if we watched this entire thing? And she did not get the memo that this was not a joke. And she was like, oh, are we watching the entirety of Daddy's Home? It's on Amazon. And I was like, yeah, we're watching this. And it was honestly worse than this movie. It was, Mark Wahlberg's not very good at being like bad cop. Really. He was just kind of like, he's a lot funnier in this movie, just kind of being like, Andy Samberg, like, hey, go, like, you know, like, just like that kind of like, oh, I'm reacting to this, like, you know, like he's a lot funnier doing that than in the first movie. He's trying to play the role that Mel Gibson plays so much better than him in this movie. So it's there's a lot of funny characters in the first one, like Will Ferrell's boss kind of plays like this funny role. He's not in this one. And he like shares like, you know, he's just like Will Ferrell's boss who has like a lot of like inappropriate anecdotes about dating and everything.
What is Will Ferrell's job?
He works at like a smooth jazz radio station. And yeah, no, again, his boss is talking about like the multitude of wives that he's had, and like how most of them are like underage teenage girls who like, you know, just like it's funny. It has like a really like strange, biting sense of humor, but like honestly, the one-upsmanship between like Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg is just, it's not funny. Even though one of the least funniest parts of this movie, Daddy's Home 2, in my opinion, is the kind of the sort of slapstick humor with Will Ferrell.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that a lot in the first one. There is some part where he like dies and then bring him back, just like they do in this movie.
Yeah.
And that's like a callback. But there's a lot more in Daddy's Home 2 that I was just kind of like, we don't need all this slapstick. Yeah, I mean, if you want me to get to the core of it, I think Daddy's Home 1 is like almost too serious.
Really?
It tries to be almost like too much of a family drama. And I'm just kind of like, where's the funny parts? Kind of, you know? And it's kind of like this... I don't know.
Was the first one a Christmas movie?
No.
Okay.
It's just kind of a like, you know, like, we live at home and this guy comes to my office. It's just kind of like a real regular like day in the life kind of comedy. And I honestly prefer this Christmas spin on this one because maybe I get hard for Christmas movies a little bit. Like
Just Friends.
Just Friends has like a Christmas spin on it, and maybe like this one gets me like a little excited. I don't know. The first one's really like Neighbors 2 kind of feel, like where it's really like, I'm taking over suburbia, you know, like yada, yada, yada. Where this one's kind of like more of National Lampoon Christmas Vacation, kind of, where they really follow that beat by beat. And that's annoying at some parts, but I kind of enjoy that at some parts.
So like I got the feeling that like the first movie, I thought it looked good from the trailer. I never actually saw it, but I remember watching the trailer and be like, that's actually a really smart concept. Like, just because it feels like the movie kind of writes itself. I don't know if it actually followed the formula, but like it just seems like, you know, you have Will Ferrell kind of playing like the straight character, or at times like the weaker, more feminine, lower energy type character.
Man-child.
Yeah, and then
which is kind of old at this point. Will Ferrell,
but that's also,
playing
it's just
man-child,
his shtick, and but at the very least, he's this playing the straight man, not straight sexual, but like he's the voice of reason, and then Mark Wahlberg is this person that comes into it and is kind of bringing this chaos into his world because he's this badass who wants to do things a different way, and the kids obviously prefer his energy of like, let's do this rebellious thing and let's do this cool thing and rock and roll and all this stuff. And I drive a motorcycle and you drive an SUV, and there's all these like contrasts that they get across in the trailer that seem really cool. And then obviously the ending would be something along the lines of like, well, what's most important is the kids. And then they end up bonding over their shared sort of wanting to have the kids do well, have a better life, and provide for the kids. And I don't know if that's the formula that ends up getting followed in the movie at all.
Yeah.
Generally,
part,
but the first one wasn't really well reviewed at all either. It did really well at the box office, but I think it had like a 50 or something like that in Rotten Tomatoes. Nothing like great.
I thought Daddy's Home 2 was a better film than Daddy's Home 1.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't watch Daddy's Home.
You should not.
Because I hated this movie.
Well, yeah, and I mean it's all your preference of comedy, really. So maybe you'd like it. This one was a little too slapsticky for me, but it really kind of, it got me at parts. Like, it got a lot of laughs out of me at some parts are spoiler parts, but I mean, just this is something that's unusual for me. I think is that I think something that I saw in the trailers kind of gets me again, and it's kind of the Mel Gibson and the John Lithgow kind of contrast of them coming down the escalator at the airport. That still gets me. Like, I still think that's funny. Even though the Thunderstruck or what is that song? Is that an AC/DC song?
Thunderstruck is.
Yeah,
is it the song that plays when Mel Gibson comes down?
Right, yeah. And that's essentially the same thing that happens when Mark Wahlberg comes down the escalator at the airport when they're getting him. So it's a little more funnier. I almost wish like it was like in the trailers where it's playing the actual chorus of that song. Like while Mel Gibson is coming down the, I don't know, but they play both of those songs that they do in the trailer, and I think it's equally as funny. I mean, you see the entire scene really in the trailer. I still thought that was funny. John Lithgow, I think, really is really putting in.
He's the only one that feels like he's pulling his weight in this movie, as far as I'm concerned.
Honestly, I mean, I think Mark Wahlberg honestly improves his performance in this one from the last one, but I think that's just because Mark Wahlberg is able to just be kind of, hey, I'm Mark Wahlberg, instead of trying to be like the, hey, I'm Mark Wahlberg, I'm a tough guy, kind of. Like, he's able to be kind of on Will Ferrell's level. And Will Ferrell just, at this point, he's just kind of like emotional man-child. Like, he is kind of in the first one, which is this kind of like, this is getting thin, dude. It's been getting thin since the early 2000s, but it's especially thin now.
It is kind of like his character from like Elf and like
it's everything, man.
Old school.
Yeah. He's been doing it for a really long time, and it's really getting thin. Yeah. The kids are really mediocre. They were a lot better in the first film. This new edition, like this girl that is
Adriana.
Yeah. I don't like kids who have like adult dialogue, kind of, where it's just kind of like they have like adult sensibilities, not exactly like Manny from not entirely Manny from like, Modern Family, but she's kind of almost like that, where she thinks she's like kind of the boss and has slightly adult sensibilities. Like she's getting into alcohol and this stuff, and she's bossing around the adults. She's bossing around Mark Wahlberg, like, you're not my dad, and Will Ferrell, especially, you're not my dad. Like.
Well, that was more just like, I think I didn't really mind that. I hate a lot of things about this movie, but that was kind of like, I got the sense
just
that
her
she was
always
like,
texting.
well, she's just in like the terrible teen, so like she's not listening to authority. She's trying to do things that are rebellious, like break into the alcohol and stuff like that, and no one can really tell her what to do. She's just going to be on her phone and be a terrible tween, or whatever you call it.
Right.
I didn't really get like an adult sensibility. I definitely got like the teen sensitivity of like, I'm trying to be older than I actually am. Like people do at like 12 and 13, and like you feel like you've grown up at that point. So you're like, yeah, I can handle alcohol. Yeah, no one can tell me what to do. I'm my own boss.
Yeah, and this film really doesn't require you to see the first film. There's a lot of like...
No, I got everything that was going on.
Yeah, no, there's even like a ton of like leaps in like logic of just kind of like, whoa, I guess we're doing this now, like it's just kind of like, oh, okay, but I don't know. I genuinely do enjoy the chemistry of John Lithgow and that Mel Gibson sort of present in this film.
See, I like what was promised by them.
Okay.
Like I actually thought this had a really great trailer for this movie, because like not having seen the first one, I don't even remember. I didn't remember reading anything about it being badly reviewed. I just remember it being like this surprise hit. And like thinking that I thought the trailer looked all right for the first one, so I was like, it was one of those movies where I was like, I kind of want to see that if it comes out on like Netflix at some point. Like,
right? It
just seems like a good movie to sit on the couch and veg out to pizza or something and watch. And then the trailer for this came out, and I was like, oh, I wonder if we'll like review that on the podcast. It's a pretty good trailer, like because I assumed that the first one resolved itself really well, followed what I thought would be the presumed storyline to that one, and was also funny at the same time. Like it just seemed like a movie that would write itself, and then this also seemed like one that would write itself. Like if you watch the trailer, like if the storyline is just like they figured out their differences from the first movie, and now it's kind of getting like thrown topsy-turvy because their parents are being brought into it, and it's kind of like, rather than the different parenting styles, it's different grandparenting styles. Like
right.
How are the different grandpa's going to act, and also their relationships to their sons, like that seems like that could, and again, the solution in the end is, well, the kids come first, we bond over how we want to put the kids first, we have to stop being so selfish. I don't think it delivered on what was really promised in the trailer at all. It gets like really sloppy and messy at parts, in terms of there's so many characters that get thrown in here. Like you have Will Ferrell, his wife, Mark Wahlberg, his wife, the 3 kids, the 2 grandparents, Adriana, John Cena's like, just all these characters end up getting thrown into it, and like we're so concerned with like all their different interrelationships with each other, like
Yeah, it's really a mix.
Like it's not even just parents to kids, grandparents to parents. We're also concerned about grandparents to kids, and parents to kids still, and step parents to step kids, and stepdad to real dad. And
it's an overcomplicated like Meet the Fockers.
Well, it started turning into this whole like meta thing of like, I felt like there was all these jokes that were like, oh, remember when like Will Ferrell had to deal with like being like the stepdad in the first one? No, Mark Wahlberg has to deal with being the stepdad, and like now the tables have turned, and
right.
It just got into a whole bunch of like weird stuff with that, where like I feel like a better, simpler movie is save the John Cena storyline for a third movie, or do that now and save the grandpa stuff for a third movie. It's too much for like one simple,
it did pile on,
cheesy like comedy movie.
Yeah,
and like he comes in at like the end too, and it's just like really strange to have him show up at that point. I don't know. It seemed like it was going to be such an easy movie, and I just feel like they didn't do anything right.
Yeah.
I did not realize that this was like a family movie at all. Seeing I guess just assuming because it was Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell, I assumed it was going to be like a family story, but not a family appropriate movie. I thought it was going to be PG-13 at least, if not R.
Well, of course it's going to be family appropriate. Is Mark Wahlberg going to go to heaven? Like, he did Boogie Nights. He's
trying to get right with God now.
Yeah, is he going to, like... Listen, whatever. He was a crack-smoking child who threw rocks at black people because they were black and knocked out maybe, like, a few Koreans because of their race. But hold on!
He did Boogie Nights.
It
had a penis in it.
Yeah,
is he gonna be all right?
Because he was Dirk Diggler, is he gonna go to heaven or hell? And those are his qualms with God. What's gonna happen to Mark Wahlberg? That's his. Every night he goes to sleep, he says, "Am I gonna go to heaven?" Because I did Boogie Nights with Paul Thomas Anderson, maybe the greatest living director of all time. Am I gonna go to heaven because I played a porn star who showed my fake penis? It wasn't a real penis.
He can go to hell for Daddy's Home too.
Right? No, it was very like, is that what you're concerned? That's what you lose sleep over, Mark Wahlberg? You fucking piece of shit.
I had no idea. So like I showed up in the theater and then there's all these like families with kids coming in. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, are you guys in the right theater? Like I'm about to watch a Will Ferrell comedy. I'm assuming it's PG-13 or R. And then you watch the movie and you're like, oh, like they can't even do the middle finger. Mm-hmm. And they have a bunch of jokes about it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it would have been a much better movie if they could have been a little bit more vulgar. Like,
oh, definitely. No,
there's just a lot where like there's so much more possibilities when you know, between like Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell, that contrast is deadened or, you know, dulled by not being able to really, you know, raise the stakes for Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
And then especially with Mel Gibson, who is like kind of, you know, an even more extreme version of like Mark, you know, how do you get a Mark Wahlberg is being raised by this Mel Gibson character, you know, but like the worst he can do is like give like a middle finger through
his glove,
his like, you know, big old glove ham fist. Yeah. And he's trying to talk about like sleeping with all these women, but they, you know, no one could come out and like outright say like he's a womanizer. He's actually sleeping with women. It's just you went home with such and such's mom. You went home with so and so's mom, and we just show him talking to women, but we don't actually see any evidence of anything. And
yeah, no, I mean I'm not as disappointed with that factor of this film because I get it. I mean, it's just like superhero movies. I get it. Like it's just kind of like gotta sell those tickets, baby. You know, like we're not making Will Ferrell comedies every year anymore because we gotta sell those tickets. Like we gotta get like those kind of older like comedy audience who can bring their whole family to see a Christmas movie kind of audience. Like we can't get the Will Ferrell like you know, just you know, Talladega Nights anymore, you know, audience. We gotta we gotta bring that guy who went and saw Talladega Nights, and we gotta bring his fucking wife and his new kids, you know. Yeah. And I get that. I don't know. It's just it's this movie's kind of a dying breed. And
but I didn't feel like it was a good kids movie or Christmas movie either. That's where I think my real like that. You know, I understand like the initial shock, but then I settled into it, and I was like, all right, I'm ready for a good heartwarming family movie. And I didn't feel like I got that either. It really like I never saw the first Grown Ups, but I saw Grown Ups 2.
Oh no, who hurt you?
I wrote that in my notes. I don't know why I watched this. I don't know. I cannot remember under what circumstances because it wasn't in theaters. I'm pretty sure it must have just been on TV on like HBO or something or Cinemax or something as the free movie of the weekend or something one night.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know why I was but this. I think this is the closest comparison I can make is like Grown Ups 2, where it's like maybe there was some magic in the first one, but it's all gone in this. And it just seems like the type of movie where like things just happen and people just say stuff, and there's no like real through line besides like these characters are here and we put them in this place, and there's nothing that's really driving the plot. It's just kind of like, and then the characters, they'll go skiing this day, and they'll go chop down a Christmas tree this day, and they'll go do this thing this day, and nothing is like actually connected. Like you could put the scenes in any order in any place that you want, and nothing like actually really ties it all together. And it just kind of seems like in Grown Ups 2, you got the feeling of like these people probably had a lot of fun making this movie.
Yeah,
that's clearly why Grown Ups 2 was made. And they even like in Grown Ups 2, they had some like scenes where I'm like, that was probably really fun to film, you know, like going down the water slide or like doing stuff like that. But I don't really understand that about this movie, because they're just like one location. They filmed in like Massachusetts in like the winter. Like, why did anyone sign on to be in this movie?
Yeah. No, it was very kind of, you know what I hate about this movie too is some of the transitions were just loud noises. I was just like
like what?
I can't even really name it. I just remember being really bothered that like sometimes some of the transitions would just be like, trees falling down kind of, or something like, going down a hill kind of. Like it was just like really stupid transitions that were loud and obnoxious and almost just trying to wake the audience from scene to scene kind of, or just like trying to excite kids or get a reaction out of man-child adults, or just kind of like, whoa, like it's loud in this theater, you know, like it was just like crazy. And again, like a lot of the first half of this movie was just nonsensical events happening back to back, just because they were kind of loosely strung together by the theme of it's Christmas. Kind of like sledding, chopping down a tree, yada yada yada.
And none of it like seemed like it followed the rest. It was just, we're gonna write a movie about a family together at Christmas. What do? They're at a cabin. They put lights up. They go chop down a Christmas tree. They go sledding one night. They're at a Christmas pageant the one night. They're gonna go shopping one night. They're gonna sit on Santa's lap. Like it was just none of it. Like I didn't care about any of it. None of it made sense. And like, I'm fine with like, you know, taking some liberties like that for a comedy, but the laughs I felt like were so few and far between in this movie. And like even when there would be laughs or scenes that I wanted to laugh at, I was so like held back by like the logic of it that I was like, yeah, physically I'm kind of laughing, but it doesn't make sense, like even like in like a stretch of like logic kind of way. Like I can't really excuse some of the stuff in it. Like when the snowblower scene is when Will Ferrell's like snowblowing the driveway as they're putting lights up. Why are they putting lights up in the first place when it's like an Airbnb? Like I know they're there for Christmas, but like would you really put up Christmas lights when your Airbnb rental is going to end like the day after Christmas? Like are you going to want to go out there the day that you're leaving and be like, oh, let's take down all these Christmas lights that we put up on someone else's fucking property? It's like I can't even buy that, much less the fact that like he's snowblowing when they're not leaving really to go anywhere, and then like he's pulling all the lights in, and like Christmas lights, one light goes out, they all goes out. Like that's the whole like joke about Christmas lights,
right? Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that he's shredding up the wire, so even if like they are like the new lights that, you know, stay on with one bulb goes out, he's cutting the cord as he's pulling it in, but they all stay lit the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, not to mention like the physics of him getting like pulled, like that I can accept, but just like the ridiculous logic of just even the whole premise of them putting up lights to begin with, I was like, this doesn't follow. It doesn't make sense. I can't buy into this in order to get the slapstick that you're about to like try and feed us. Like,
No,
I could have maybe bought that if they were at home. Like that's maybe kind of a funny scene, sort of, but it's also not really playing into Will Ferrell's strengths either. Like he's not a slapstick comic.
He's not. I don't like that scene. There's literally a scene like that in the first film where he goes to move Mark Wahlberg's like motorcycle like from behind the car.
I remember from the trailer,
and like he literally somehow drives it like 180 degrees into the front door of their house, up the stairs and out the bedroom like wall, falling like 2 stories on the motorcycle. Like it was just like
that, the logic of that premise makes sense, just because like you believe like, yeah, Will Ferrell's character is trying to impress his kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course he'd be like, oh yeah, I can move like the motorcycle.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Whereas I don't understand why they're
less,
putting lights up on an Airbnb rental. I don't even understand them like getting the Airbnb rental, because Mel is just kind of like, oh yeah, I found one, I booked it right away. Like you can't even enter your credit card information that fast, much less see one, search it, decide it. Much less what fucking like mom or dad would just be like, oh yeah, like we can just uproot our Christmas and go to this vacation rental that your like ex-husband's father rented for us, for all of us, and just made the executive decision that we're going to go there. Like I almost thought that was going to be like more of a sticking point with like the Linda Cardellini character, to be like, you know, like why aren't we having Christmas at home? Do you get to make the decision of us just going to this random Airbnb in Massachusetts that we're gonna go to? It was just I couldn't follow the logic of that. The entire thing with like Will Ferrell dying, like that's fine because it's a punchline callback. And maybe there's maybe this is
I didn't like that scene either.
Maybe it's an additional callback to the first one, but the fact that they have like an entire fight while he's just dead, like Mark Wahlberg's about to do CPR, and then his dad says something, and he's like, "Oh, you know, well, I gotta like finish debating this with you," and he has no kind of like, they don't even make a joke out of like, you know, him keep trying to start, and his dad keeps interrupting him, and maybe someone being like, like he's fucking dead, like help.
Yeah, they didn't have that character.
It just seemed like the script had nowhere else to go besides like, we can't fit this fight anywhere else besides over Will Ferrell's dead body, so it has to take place here.
Will Ferrell's like husband is, or his gay husband.
It wouldn't happen because this movie is homophobic. We'll get into that too.
Will Ferrell's like wife is like the character who's like, bring him back to life. Like, why are we like, you know, like, why are we arguing over this, yada yada? And then in this movie, there's no presence of that character. That's like my least.
I think even one of his kids is there at that point, and no one is like, he's fucking dead. Like, and like I do like the fact that he dies again as a callback. I like the fact that like he gets brought back, and they're like, you know, yeah, you did die again, but you still have to have people like react to it like in real time.
I don't like the whole cell phone tower like $20,000 bill or whatever. I was just kind of like, I don't totally.
How much do these people make? Like, how much does Mel Gibson's character make that he can just be like, booked an Airbnb?
Well, he's some sort of NASA like pilot,
astronaut or something. I guess.
So I mean, I guess his budget is extraordinary, but
he doesn't even blink at it. Like, you know, for an event that he probably doesn't even really want to be at, he's like, oh yeah, we'll go here just to like take them out of their element.
I think it's he's trying to win over the grandchildren, and he's trying to break apart these two. It plays into his narrative. I get that. Like,
it's just I hate when comedies do the whole like. A lot of times comedies rely on like, well, someone here has a whole lot of money and can just buy whatever that we need for comedic purposes. Like, a lot of comedy doesn't have to like abide by the logic of like, not everybody makes like $200K a year.
No, yeah, and that's me and Saber were kind of making fun of that with the Daddy's Home 1. They have like this huge house, and it's just kind of like, this is like a 5 or 6 bedroom house, really, that like Will Ferrell and his wife live in, and his kids are sleeping in the same room, kind of, for the sake of both of his kids going to sleep every night at the same time, kind of, and like, why are they having Budweiser as like their drink of choice before they go to sleep? Like, it's just like a bunch of like weird kind of like, these people are like ridiculously rich.
Well,
but
and
like,
then in this with the fucking cell phone tower thing, like, I don't mind the fact that he cuts the cell phone tower gag. I'm not crazy about like the slapstick part of it, but I like kind of the not intellectual. It's not like the highbrow humor, but the non-physical aspect of like, oh, he was trying to cut down a tree and he cut down a cell phone tower
Right.
when trying to act like he knew how to do this macho thing of, chopping a tree down. That was fine. But then like they bring the tree back and they end up, I don't even understand, like not even like I don't follow the lot, like I don't understand what happens in that scene where they just buy the tower.
Yeah, I don't totally get that either.
Like why would buying it be an option? Why would you get it at all? Why wouldn't like the cell phone company be like, no, yeah, we're just going to charge you because you destroyed our property.
Yeah.
And we're going to salvage these parts and we'll put up our new, like that didn't make sense at all. And then the fact that like they use it as the Christmas tree, like it's a little bit of a gag. I get it. But then like Linda Cardellini, the mom being like, well, I hope it was worth it. Like this $20,000 monstrosity. And that's as mad as she gets. Like, $20,000, that's a fucking car. That's like a year's tuition for one of your kids in college. That's like that's a life ruiner for a lot of people. So they must make so much money for them to just be like, oh yeah, $20,000, that's like your dad getting in a fender bender.
Yeah.
For like the rest of us, like. And then I don't understand like how like them I sort of get because it seems like they're well off, they're driving the nicer SUVs. They clearly have, a decent amount of money. But then we see Mark Wahlberg's job and he's basically a crossing guard. And when they bring up the whole thing of like, well, we'll split it. $10,000 for a crossing guard is like, got to be like at least a fifth of that person's salary for the year. And he doesn't blink an eye at that either. So it's like they're not even following the logic of like any kind of world, much less like the world that they're trying to create for us. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's not like it's like a great joke. And like, don't bring the tree home. Don't make them spend $20,000. Like, that's such an easy fix to get around such just weird logic jumps that we're stuck with.
Yeah, there's something where
It's just mind-boggling. Like, it just doesn't seem like they didn't try. It seems like they didn't try, rather.
Yeah. There's something where Mark Wahlberg's like jokingly kind of does like this thing for Will Ferrell's like jazz radio station where he's making what's it called, like where every time they play it you make
Like a stinger.
I don't know what it's called.
Royalties?
Yeah, like where every time they play it, he makes royalties, and he ends up making more from this radio station that Will Ferrell does, who's like one of the main, producers of this. So he makes a ton of money, and he's able to buy like an even larger house than Will Ferrell does. What they allude to in this or whatever. Not that that makes much of a difference. I don't really know why he's a crossing guard in this movie, besides just like.
Wanting to be near his kids or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And they also go into some sort of like career where he's some sort of military personnel in the first movie, but they never really allude to that in this movie. Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of inconsistencies.
And there's some scenes that work, but they are not consistent with the scenes that don't.
Yeah.
Which is what kills me. It's like, you had this concept that I feel like writes itself. You have scenes where you know how to be really funny, but, or at least passably funny, and then you don't really follow it up in the other scenes. Like the first scene I saw from this movie was just someone had shared a clip of the thermostat scene, which I still think is like the funniest scene in the movie. Just because it's like, it's playing into like what the movie seems like it's going to be about, is this kind of like abundance of like dad humor.
Right. Yeah.
Now you've got like this 4 dads at once, and just all of them kind of being like, you don't let the people mess with the thermostat. And it's just kind of like this like big dad joke that like really works in that scene, and they're all really playing it up and hamming up to that. Like even Mel Gibson, who I hated in this movie, is fine in that scene because he's like the initiator of that whole thing. John Lithgow, like especially in that scene, and then Will Ferrell with his like really like aloof like, what? Like, no,
Yeah.
it's a sacred bond. The thermostat,
Yeah.
that is like really working for me. But then there's so many or so few other parts that actually like made me laugh in that movie. Like, I think I can count them all on like my hand. Like, I think that thermostat scene made me laugh. The scene where Will Ferrell's giving the one kid the talk, and he ends up trying to explain like the friend zone.
Yeah.
And you can tell that it's clearly like Will Ferrell doing like his improv stuff, and there's nothing else of that in the rest of the movie. And that's what makes like Will Ferrell movies good, is like his genius mind of like, yeah, let me just riff on this kind of concept for a while, and you'll, after like a half an hour, you'll get a good take out of it that's like passable. But like he's talking about like the friend zone, and like oh yeah, and like, eventually you'll get like an invite to the wedding, and like, her mom will come up and be like, were you invited? And you always bring like the wedding invite. Like, that's funny, but it's so out of character and out of tone with the rest of the movie. Like, it doesn't even seem like that character to be like kind of giving that sort of speech.
Right.
And then I did really like the snowballs scene with John Lithgow.
Yeah.
It's cheap and cheesy, but I really like repetitive physical humor. Like,
I even like when
did you watch the new season of Wet Hot American Summer?
Yes.
The one scene where everyone keeps running into the table, and the one guy like actively goes out of his way to avoid it, and then he's like, "Oh, I forgot my coat," and he comes back. Like, that's like the easiest way to like really get me to laugh. And the whole John Lithgow thing, that was like a genuine, like, I couldn't even like hold back my laughter at that point when like Mark Wahlberg hits him,
Yeah.
whoever else hits it, Will Ferrell hits him again, and then John Cena trying to throw it like completely away. Like, in the background you hear John Lithgow get hurt again. But then again, like, they don't have that type of humor in the rest of the movie. Like, that was just kind of like an outlier that like happened to make it into the movie.
I really
It's almost like humor that you would find in like not another teen movie, because it also has like, it's like the off-camera like scream going on.
literally, and I think this is like, you might find this stupid, but this is like the most that I've laughed in like a theater in a really long time, is when they've been prepping like the son so long for like this kind of like make the move on this like Asian girl with braces and kiss her, and like kiss under the mistletoe, and they're very like aggressive, like about like, especially like the what's his name character, the grandfather character,
Mel Gibson.
yeah, Mel Gibson. Sorry,
I don't know what his character.
I'm totally blanking on, yeah, but Mel Gibson's character, it's like, yeah, like, you're gonna want to get it like just sexually, like moving into the sexual assault kind of like territory, or he's kind of like, like, you make the first move, and you like, whether she likes it or not, you like kiss her or whatever, and he's like, you bring the mistletoe, and then when you're done kissing her, you slap her on the butt, and you're just like, yeah, like, I forget what she says, but there's that whole long scene where all the dads are so proud that he's like walking over to like the girl, and he ends up kissing like the sister. And like, I can tell by your face that you're not amused, but like, that was like,
because it's not actually his sister. I wasn't totally following the logic.
It's his half sister, but still.
It's not even his half sister, because it's Mark Wahlberg didn't father that one. John Cena and Mark Wahlberg's new wife.
Yeah. But still, it's his stepsister.
I guess, yeah.
It's still.
I don't
like,
even think is Mark Wahlberg married to this new girlfriend?
No. But that's still
Eventual
his mom.
stuff. It's just a whole weird.
They share.
I knew what they were going for, but I feel like they didn't fully create the situation that works for that.
They
joke.
share mom, and it's very obviously taboo, and it's just it took a step that I really wish this movie took more often. It's just funny. It's very like the kind of like, and like Michael Cera's character in like Arrested Development, except I think it's just like this like I don't know. It's just this child who doesn't really know any better than like, this is what I'm attracted to. Who's like enduring like 3 different men trying to kind of guide him in this direction of kind of like, this is what you want to do with a woman. And really they're coaching him on like how to kiss his sister, really. You know, like it's just...
But it was also like a cheap thing because it was like, we as the audience like didn't really have a fair chance at guessing that, so to speak, just because like
I like that though.
But they clearly showed him looking like Adriana wasn't where the Asian girl that he was looking at was.
I think they were always in the same group, and in a way,
no, because when he first shows up, they're all at the car, and she's the neighbor kid, which is another weird thing because we never see her fucking parents. I don't know if that was like a budget thing of like, why pay parents and write parents into the script? We'll just have this neighbor kid that she always sees and always is around.
Yeah.
Hold on, I just want to see what's going on with this.
All right.
It just overheated. Not gonna worry about that.
I'm gonna keep going.
It's dead right now.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, but they even try to cover their tracks really with that. With Will Ferrell talks to her about how like his parents are, you know, becoming, you know, when her parents aren't around or whatever. Yeah, I mean, maybe her like mom could be around.
That part wasn't awful too. Just him kind of being like, was it your fault too? It was probably your fault.
I really love No, I'm gonna go back to I literally think that was one of the funniest. That was like one of the ringer scenes of this movie for me, was him like kissing the sister, and like Mel Gibson, like even after like everyone's just kind of being like, oh no, Mel Gibson's like like just kind of like still cheering him.
I wasn't ready to forgive Mel Gibson being in this movie, so I might have just a blind hatred for all the scenes that he's in.
It was really funny.
And I think a scene like that could have been better in a movie where it can go more over the top, where it's not a family comedy like that.
Like, oh man, that made it so much better though, that it's a family comedy, and
But that's like a meta joke that you're laughing at, like, oh, this happened in a family comedy.
Kind of, yeah. I don't know.
Like the scene with like the Liam Neeson movie, I did laugh at, but I thought that could have gone so much more over the top in like a non-family movie, because like the joke is more that like it's something that like only we as really adults understand, of like, oh, like you thought you were going to see a family movie and you're at this like really gruesome movie with whatever. I did really laugh at the line of like, you did it, Dad, you killed him. And it's like, no, we killed them. But like that joke could have been
movie called too. It was
something like, mistletoe or and it was literally mistletoe, and they had like the really like outlandish explanation for it of like, oh, he's a tow truck driver who there are some like just weird one-liners that stick out that like I definitely chuckled at in the theater, like when they're trying to convince the new stepdad John Cena not to leave, and he was like, I was like a stand-in or whatever for season 3 of Ice Road Truckers. And Will Ferrell's like, it was the best season.
One of the other is like at the very end, where like it was a really lame scene up until this point, where it was like all of the girls were like lining up to kiss the brother character. Like, just, it's super homophobic, but the boy pops out, and that was literally the only other time that I laughed during this movie, and it was too good for me not to laugh at.
It was a really funny visual, but in the movie that had been so homophobic to that point, I actually got mad when that happened.
It was too well coordinated.
Like, I want a reaction gif of that, but I don't like the fact that was a punchline in a movie that because the whole movie is kind of like, you know, like Will Ferrell is the punchline for being this sort of effeminate man-child type character. And then we have the whole thing with him and John Lithgow like kissing, and that's like a real punchline every time. And then even like Mark Wahlberg and like Mel Gibson like try kissing, and they're like, no, it's like not for us. Like in a movie like that, to have that kind of like really flirting with real homophobia at that point, to have the punchline be like, oh, all the girls can kiss my little boy, but like the boy that gets in line, like that's getting into some real like sick homophobia of like a guy who wants to kiss other guys is like a deviant because he has that like creepy smile when he like comes. And it's a funny visual. Like I wanted to laugh, but I felt guilty about it because I was like, find another punchline to work in this creepy smile of this kid, like, because that's really all that's funny is the kid like kind of like it seems like something from like a Tim and Eric like skit.
Right, yeah.
Like it's a really funny visual, like the kid being like like sneaking out. But when you put it in that context, it's like that's really upsetting to me. Like I laughed like out of like you're fucking kidding me. Like you put that in this movie. And that definitely like it started to like detract from any laughs that I had earlier in the movie.
I don't know. I mean, yes.
It just didn't seem like if there were writers for this movie, they weren't all on the same page. And
I think that was... Well, yes. That laugh is almost inexcusable, but I'll still laugh at it.
No, it is funny, but like it just... But it was like they weren't smart enough to recognize that like we can have this laugh in another context. We don't have to have it in this offensive context. But it's not funny that he's a deviant. It's funny that it's just his face, like him popping out. Like anyone doing that is funny.
Was he a deviant though?
That's the implication they're trying to make. Is like all these girls kissing him is normal, and then what's the outlier is this creepy kid. Like the smile he's giving is like I snuck into this line and I'm gonna steal a smooch.
I think he's just
from this kid.
He's just I think it is like a bunch of girls who are trying to kiss him, and he's just kind of trying to get in on it. You know, like he's just. Like I think,
but then the fact that that's a punchline,
yes,
like what?
Exactly, and that's a like it's wrong that I'm laughing at it, most definitely. But
well, no, it's.
But I think yes, I think that's the most like offensive thing. But I think there's something about in the first movie and in this movie about Will Ferrell kind of coming out on top as the good guy, kind of above everybody, and he's the most effeminate character, where it's kind of really like, hey, it like that's kind of the moral of the story, the first one, where it's kind of like, hey, I'm the most respectful of women, yada yada yada, I'm the more in touch with my feminine side, and I kind of end up with the women, and I'm who Mark Wahlberg wants to be more like, kind of, and I think that kind of ends up being more or less the kind of punchline in this story. I mean, I think Mel Gibson kind of really throws a wrench into that, and I think he even becomes kind of like, hey, I've been a dick this whole time. And it's best if we don't even apologize and we don't even make amends because like really, that's how bad my character is. Yeah,
it's really appropriate that Mel Gibson is in this movie after not having apologized for all the fucking shit that he did, and then his character in this movie is someone who's a total prick.
Yeah,
and doesn't apologize, and everyone's just kind of like, it's Mel, like that's fine.
Right, yeah. And I mean that is like I don't know. That's like some families.
I mean, I say like appropriate in the fact that like I hate that was a thing in this movie. Like,
right.
Ironically, like I'm laughing at like. Of course, that's the role that Mel Gibson plays is like the asshole who can't apologize for what he did.
Right.
And just expects to be welcomed back with open arms to Hollywood.
Yeah, and I think that's like. I don't know. I just think that's funny casting. And like that's
but it's like it's an actual piece of shit, like
yeah, no, but I honestly think
in a kids movie too, like Especially when his
notices-
one crime is like beating his wife while she's holding his kid. Like, definitely don't put that motherfucker in a family movie.
No, yeah, no, I get that. I don't know. I just think a lot of the casting is like the punchlines of like this film.
I mean, that was kind of one of my notes at one point was like, I feel like that's the only punchline in this movie is like, oh, like Will Ferrell is like the bad dad, or sorry, Mel Gibson is the bad dad, and John Lithgow is like the funny dad. And I do like John Lithgow in this, and I think even in like the parts that are like supposed to sort of like tug at our heartstrings, he's definitely like pulling his weight in this movie, or trying to.
Like the improv scene is like very powerful. I think.
I think it could have been. I think he's doing all he can for
Yes,
it. I think I'm also just so checked out of the movie at that point that like there's not much that can really bring me back.
Yeah.
It's been so bungled at that point that I'm kind of like, oh, like now you're going to kind of ham-fistedly try to throw in this emotional like heart moment
Yeah.
for like a storyline that doesn't really have any resolution. Like the resolution is, or the storyline itself is like, oh, my dad lied to me, and then Will Ferrell just kind of starts acting like a dick after that because of it. Which doesn't really tie into what should be the entire theme of the movie is like, you know, them trying to raise the kids and like what's the best way to parent and or grandparent these kids, or then at the very least like what's the best way to parent your adult children of Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg and handle their personalities. And like I said, it got so convoluted when like John Cena got involved, and then when they tried to have like the emotional arc with him too, I was like, what are we doing? Like we still haven't resolved the shit with Mel Gibson. We've barely resolved it with John Lithgow. Like we did, but it was just kind of like, oh, daddy, it's fine. Like I understand why you like lied to me. Like we didn't pay like any real emotional weight to that after trying to make us cry with like the improv scene.
Right.
And then we're going to pay more attention to like, no, John Cena, like you need to be a part of this family too. And
Right.
like, like just kind of rehashing what I assume happened with the first movie with Will Ferrell to Mark Wahlberg, because that was the entire joke that I understood it to be, was like, now Mark Wahlberg is trying to be that to John Cena, like the shoes on the other foot kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just too much, too weird, not really making a whole lot of sense to me, and none of it felt like it tied together. None of it felt coherent. I didn't feel like I was watching an actual like through line or center plot for this movie. It just felt like, here's a situation. We have a family of like stepdads and dads and whatnot. And we're just going to throw them in a bunch of different set pieces. Like here's the 2 minutes literally that they're on like the tubing mountain. Here's the scene where they're going to go to the woods and chop down a tree. And here's the scene where they're going to go to the nativity scene and whatnot. Like it was just a lot of just different set pieces that didn't really have a logic or through line to them. It was just kind of like, okay, Christmas family movie. These are the places we have to go. These are the boxes that we have to check.
I did kind of find the, like, I mean, it seemed very calculated. I hated, but also really liked the kind of, I don't know what song they sing at the end, but
It's that one that's got like a bunch of different.
It's very like We Are the
singers,
World
yeah.
kind of like Christmas song, and I like cracked up that Mark Wahlberg as a kid missed his like Bono part because like Mel Gibson was making out with like somebody else's mom or something, and they get that kind of redemption at the end, and it's kind of funny. And we also get the John Cena kind of reaction to it, where he kind of even has like he has like literally like Will Ferrell like written lines where it's kind of like I'll even listen to this in September, like kind of just like dumb fucking stupid lines, but like I fall for that kind of, just because I haven't like heard stuff like that in such a long time. I do enjoy that, even though so much of that scene is so bad, but like it was just so, some of it's still like, I don't know that song, it's still like it hits still some sort of like Christmas kind of it worked for me. It
yeah.
worked for me a little, yeah.
It felt very like, I don't know if fan servicey is the right word.
There was at some point where it was kind
fan
of
club
like,
is for Daddy's Home. But
we're all in like the movie theater, and I was just kind of like,
that felt like product placement. I don't know if it's an actual theater chain, Showcase Theaters.
No, yeah, I don't think it is. Yeah.
It felt like a
Yeah.
because there was a lot of like actual showcase. Like they showed the name Showcase more than I feel like they would have if it wasn't an actual movie theater.
Oh, really?
Chain.
Maybe it is.
I
Yeah.
didn't care enough to look it up, but it seemed like chain placement. Like, oh, who will let us film at their theater that we can,
Right, yeah.
you know, show the whatever in. And like the singing part of it, like it felt like do you remember the episode of The Office where like there's a few episodes where they started to get like really fan servicey in The Office, but they would do like the one where they're trying to make like the viral video,
that was
or like
bad.
the wedding episode where they're trying to recreate like the Chris Brown like dancing down the aisle stuff. Like it felt like something like that where it was like just like it was like self-aware of the fact that it was like all these kind of stars that singing something. Like it was really self-aware of Mark Wahlberg singing. I mean, not so much the Will Ferrell part. It was definitely very self-aware of like John Cena singing, and it was just kind of like a punchline that I felt like I didn't get, that didn't feel earned in this movie. And maybe part of that is me not knowing that song prior to this movie, which is a good song, but just like their version of it was just. It was just kind of like, here's this verse, this person sings this line, this person sings this line. It didn't feel logical at all. Like, I didn't really buy the fact that like, oh, the kids are going to sing it, and these two people who are kind of tied together are going to sing the harmony in this. Like, it just, there was just so much that I felt like I had to suspend my logic or, just kind of give up on trying to justify in this movie. And I was definitely very checked out.
It kind of goes off the
point.
rails at that point, but like,
I also didn't really feel like I got like a good Christmas message because again, they didn't resolve Mark Wahlberg and his dad. They resolved Will Ferrell and his dad, but it was so just like, well, I understand why you lied to me, Dad. Like there was, he just flipped a switch because he needed to because we had to move on in the plot.
Right.
When that really should have been the whole part of the story was their relationship, and we didn't really get their relationship to the kids. It was kind of just like rehashing what I assume was Daddy's Home 1, the Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg to the kids. I don't know. It was just not anything that I thought it was going to be. It very rarely satisfied me on the comedy level. I don't even like really consider it a Christmas movie because it's so hardly registered on that level for me. Like a good Christmas movie, like I should watch it even now in like mid-November and be like, oh yeah, like I'm ready for Christmas. Like Elf, the movie that surpassed in gross budget or gross box office. Like I can't watch Elf and not get in like the Christmas spirit. Like the ending of Elf just puts me in the Christmas spirit, or like How the Grinch Stole Christmas, any of the versions of that, like just that kind of you got to believe in Christmas type thing like works. Them trying to sing a Christmas song doesn't really imbibe Christmas spirit to me. Like, there's nothing that's really like a Christmas message about that. And it didn't seem like they even really tried to get one across. And that's to sort of maybe just hop into my final thoughts about the movie is just, I didn't feel like anyone was really trying here. I didn't think like Will Ferrell was giving his performance, who I think is obviously still a great comedic actor, maybe not taking the best roles anymore. And then like Mark Wahlberg, I've seen him be great and funny and stuff. I do really like the two of them together and the other guys.
I wasn't crazy about that movie.
I think it's definitely funnier than this, I think. And then like John Lithgow is the only one that like I felt was really like kind of playing a character consistently well and handling the few dramatic parts he's given, but also the comedy parts that he was given. Whereas like, I mean, Mel Gibson was consistently a prick, I guess, the entirety of it. And I just am kind of blinded by not wanting to see him in movies anymore. And everyone else was just kind of like there in it. And it didn't seem like the writers were trying. It didn't seem like the directors were trying. Nothing felt like it was trying to be consistent or achieve a message or even really trying to make us laugh all that hard. You know? Like it's just like some of this stuff just felt so lazy. Like him getting pulled up the wall by like the Christmas lights and the snowblower felt so lazy, and that falling on the car felt so lazy. And Mark Wahlberg like throwing the suitcase away, and Will Ferrell being the one that doesn't have a suitcase being lazy. The fucking mirror scene felt so fucking lazy. Like I have a hard time imagining that this was someone's like best effort at like a feel good family comedy Christmas movie. So all that being said, I haven't read the Rotten Tomatoes yet, but this is pretty much all I would say about my review of the movie, so I'm just going to give it now. Had Mel Gibson not been in it, it would have been a half finger movie, but I'm going to give it 0 finger.
Oh, man. Holy shit. Mike's...
I think that's my first.
Bringing in his first 0 finger
I get real mad at
review.
movies where I feel like people aren't trying. Like, you know, like at least like The Circle, I know someone was trying to make that a good movie, and no one signed on to that movie being like, it's just another paycheck, you know, whatever. Like, it's just something fell apart in production or pre-production with The Circle. Whereas when this is like a sequel to a movie, like it's clearly a cash grab, and I feel like no one was like, oh, I have to give my A game here. Besides maybe John Lithgow, but I'm going to subtract that from Mel Gibson being in this movie because surely there's someone else we can find that can play a badass dad. Like, Mel Gibson is not the only person that could, you know, fucking like George Clooney or like someone else, you know, who is like a silver fox in their, you know, age could clearly play that role. Possibly even better than Mel Gibson. And I just think there's no excuse to be hiring actors like that at this point. Like, there's other people out there.
I don't know. That's kind of what makes me laugh, though, is that they hired him. Like,
but that's like a humor that's like outside of the movie.
I get that, and maybe that's like my cruel sense of humor is them hiring him, and I think that's kind of a joke. I don't know. I think like the contrast between hiring him, I honestly think that is funny, and John Lithgow in contrast that makes it even more funnier. Again, I don't think highly of the first movie. I think it was worse than this. I don't think this movie was great either. Again, I really got kicks out of I think maybe jokes that you thought were not
appropriate,
and I think maybe that's okay. Like, I don't know. At some point, I think this is like the last hurrah of this kind of humor. The whole maybe like Will Ferrell humor. I do think the character like of the man-child kind of is getting very tired. I think this might be one of the last sort of films that we see this in, or films or franchises or whatever. I don't know. There's probably still a market for it. I mean, it's obviously made more money than the Orient Express. Again, Mark Wahlberg has a pretty funny performance in this compared to the first one, where I didn't think he was funny at all. He's not very funny as like a badass. And this one, where he's just kind of like, you know, like, Brad, what are you doing, Brad? Like, that's funny to me. Will Ferrell is kind of funny. I think like the kind of over emotional Will Ferrell is a little funny. John Lithgow, I think, really is the strongest performance in this. I mean, again, Linda Cardellini, or whatever her name is in Freaks and Geeks, it's like
Lindsay Weir.
Yeah, Lindsay Weir. You know, she's really doing her best as that kind of like supporting wife character. I do enjoy her. The kids are okay. Whatever.
Kids are all right.
Kids are all right. The kid kissing his sister scene. It brings down the house, man. It's the only scene I've laughed out loud in the theater. I was by myself in the theater, and I laughed for like a whole 2 minutes of that scene. I don't know why. Like, it really it brought something out of me.
Getting a glimpse inside Joe's soul.
Maybe I want to kiss my stepsister, huh?
For the record, Joe doesn't have a stepsister.
I don't know.
In case anyone's concerned while listening to this.
It's just funny. I don't know. I think it's more funny from a parental kind of like, you do the best you can with your kids and they end up trying to kiss their sister. Yeah, I don't know. I think something that comes inherently with Christmas movies makes me like it more. Fucking gay punchline. That kid fucking killed me. He nailed it when he pops out in the line. Oh man, like those two scenes alone, I have to give it.
I still don't understand.
I have to give it.
Why were the girls
fingers.
lining up for that?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense, but it really fucking tees it up for that punchline. I'm gonna give this film 2 fingers. I was gonna give it even higher.
You're saying that like it's a high score.
I was gonna give it higher. I was gonna get a 2.5 or 3, but I've grown the wiser over the past day. It's still. I mean, I hate so much of this movie, but it's still funny.
So I don't know why I had to calculate this, but that came out to 1 finger.
1 finger.
Don't have to round down. It's late. It's that kind of night. But if you saw Daddy's Home 2, if you agree or disagree, Team Mike or Team Joe, is it an acceptable below par comedy movie, or is it an unacceptable piece of garbage, as Mike would say?
Is it just a non-movie?
Is it a movie that Mike didn't pay for because he used his movie pass, but he wished he hadn't used his movie pass for that day because I could have seen anything else and it would have been better? I almost wish we had reviewed like Bad Moms Christmas, because I almost feel like that would have been better.
See, I would have rather reviewed anything than the Orient Express. That was painful for me to watch. This I could watch twice, like I said.
It's your new Just Friends.
No. Don't fucking put that in the same category as this.
How dare you? Oh boy. Let's sign out and get the fuck out of this episode. We're on Snapchat now. Did you know? Now you do. Find us at HMF Podcast on Snapchat. Add us. We'd love to be your friend. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Watch our videos. Get us back to 10,000 views so we can get our money back on YouTube.
Bring our money home.
So we can make $5 total in 3 years of podcasting on YouTube. That would be great and swell.
I'm still laughing about mistletoe. Go on.
That was just like humor that felt like it didn't fit in this movie. Like it was... Like, I feel like it was like a really lazy, like, writers group. These 2 guys writing it. And then they, for some reason, got really inspired on that of, like, oh, what would be, like, a funny Liam Neeson, like, parody movie? Like, Mistletoe. Like, it just didn't fit with the rest of the movie, even though it was funny. I did really laugh out loud at, Dad, you did it. You killed them. No, we killed them. And then they kind of just immediately threw that out of the window with the whole, like, when he starts trying to say motherfucker, and it, like, the theater did. Not really in tone with the humor that they already had going. Anyway, getting distracted. HowManyFingersPodcast.com. Pretty much everything you can find there. You can find a link to iTunes where you can rate us, subscribe to us, review us. All that's really good for our metrics, so we really appreciate that. Find a link to our mailing list on MailChimp. You can subscribe to that, get emails from us, correspondence digitally. It's all the rage. You'll love it. You can buy some merch at our merch store, howmanyfingerspodcast.bigcartel.com. Koozies, stickers, t-shirts, all 3 in a package deal for $11.99. And as always, Amazon iTunes link.
Amazon iTunes.
Click on either on our website. Anything you purchase within each platform program within the next 24 hours, we'll get a nice cut of. Really easy way to support us without really doing anything besides what you were already going to do. Can't beat that. So those are all some great ways that you can support the podcast, show your support, show your love. We'd appreciate all of them. And oh boy, Daddy tired.
Daddy's tired too.
Daddy's home and tired too. Signing out for How Many Fingers a Podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Joe. And Daddy's tired too. And one. I don't know, guys. You just
insert your own punchline here.
Yeah.
We can't be funny all the time.
Daddy's tired too, you know?